What's up, everybody? This is In the Pocket, where we talk about the things and people around sports that you want to talk about. I'm Big Bob. That's Maestro. How are you doing today, Maestro?
Outstanding. Got my Picasso view on. All the good is good and all the great is great. And that's what it is. That's how we do. Yo, what's up? What's happening, people? Appreciate all the
Absolutely.
feedback. Appreciate
Yeah.
everything everybody's been throwing out for us.
Yep.
And you know what? I just can't even tell you. When Bob and I were talking about it, we want to keep it natural, want to keep it like ourselves, fam. And but just you, I'm just gonna say this for the first set of questions. Man, people got a long way to go, bro. Because I feel like we're starting off like as like the number one team in the Olympics. I mean, goodness gracious, man, what some awesome questions, man. And I just want to appreciate everybody for taking a listen, and for the feedback and more importantly the questions. And we're gonna get right to it our natural way right here, right now for you.
Absolutely. Speaking of natural, I know some people don't think uh, some of the people in sports now are natural, but that's been forever. But some of the crazy athletes that we have. First off, shout out Kai Killens for our first topic of today. He
Yeah, hey, in the house.
absolutely wants to talk about the GMO humans now playing sports, the freaks out there, the Wembiamas, the Antetokounmpos, those kinds of guys. How are those kind of freak athletes that are coming out and everything now? How is that going to affect the way that basketball is played in the future? Obviously, there's always been freak athletes, but there's even more now. You look at the NFL, and you had your Randy Mosses, but there wasn't a Randy Moss on every team, where now it feels like there's a freak athlete on every single team. So what are your thoughts, Maestro?
You know what? Kai, this is an amazing question for a lot of different reasons. And I tell you because it's one of those things where, so if you guys, and yes, in the pocket, we're going to give you some homework, right? So if you look up Pete, if you look up Pete Maravich, I believe was his name. He was a kid quarterback, drafted by the Oakland Raiders, but he was, his father raised him to become like basically Captain
Yeah.
America.
Uh-huh.
Totally vegetarian, worked his body out, and I don't know if there's a documentary on him
Yep.
available or not. But take a second, and look up this guy when basically they were trying to craft the ultimate athlete. I'm going to take a little side turn in Mississippi here, so forgive me one second, Bob. I promise to come back to the topic. If you so that's one thing to look at. Go back and look up East Germany in the Olympics between 1930s and the 1960s. There was a whole thing about how East German women's teams actually had men on those teams, where
Hmm.
they would take these young athletic guys, they'd give them hormone deficiencies and stuff like that, so they would look mostly like women as much as you could look like a woman from that part of the world. No offense, really no offense. But what happened was they would put them on their Olympic teams in the hope of gaining more gold medals. Now it did not totally work, but what outed them was one of the athletes came out and told a story when he was trying to transition back to being a man. Unfortunately, I believe he got arrested by the government intelligence agency, the Stasi or whatever they were called. And so it turned into this whole thing. It was supposed to be this whole big secret. I'm coming back to what you're talking about with the freaks, right? So it seems as though every part of history, someone has tried to do something like Bob said to get the greater athlete because that's what we want. Today, what you're seeing is, and this is going to come across really eugenics, and I'm going to apologize for that right now because I don't mean it that way. But we're starting to see more and more athletes that are in a way being bred into the athlete that they are, coming from two athletic parents, coming from athletic families. You're starting to see second and third generations in the NBA and the NFL, even in hockey and stuff now. So what does that mean? You're seeing these people who are coming from a lineage of athletes, and it's more than just the physical training, as you guys pointed out with with Wimbenyama and stuff like that. There is the mental training that go on. Those little secrets that you learn from being around other athletes and other people who are really good at what they do, that you kind of learn and you take in. It becomes natural to you. It becomes a part of the game. You don't have to learn those little sneaky moves and things like that because you've already seen them. Your mind has absorbed them, and it sort of help you shape into the player you are. And I apologize for this answer being so long, but it's so awesome. The reality of it is the change is happening in that when those scouts are now looking at athletes and they're looking at what's called the measurables, the height, the speed, that hand size thing, right, is just only one of the things that they talk about, including up into how they measure your propensity to get knee injuries. So they'll you have you stand straight. They'll measure the distance between your knees, and they'll measure the direction that your thighs move, either in or outward, and this whole process. So all those quantifiable, measurable pieces of the physical person, not just the height, not just the other stuff, become a larger issue into what type of athlete they expect you to be. And they're going to measure your mental output or input or whatever you want to call it because of how you play the game. Are you playing it like a natural player? Are you doing those things that you need to do to be successful and make your team successful? And it's something we're going to talk about later when we get into another question, another great question that was asked by someone else. The idea, the lag time between performance and attention, between between like presentation and acceptance is a lot smaller now. So that means if you are Wimbenyana, even if you're in the bottom butt end of Kentucky in some town that has 75 people and one high school, people are going to know about you, right? Not just, and it's going to start with the fact that you are a physical freak over someone else, and then they're going to get into this other stuff. So yes, it's definitely changing the way I think that teams and scouts look at players, and I think it also changes the way general managers and people who make those financial decisions look at who they want to invest in for their team.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, with all these freak athletes that we have out there, and the way that sports in general are becoming more lenient, I think, with the on the field product or on the court product, we're going to see. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, at some point, we're going to have somebody who can go the length of the court and bounce the ball once. And because of the way that them being a freak athlete coupled with the rules, like I'm pretty sure that right now Wimby can take one step from the 3 point line, one dribble from the 3 point line or half court, and legally, based on rules now, get to the basket. And
Right.
at some point, I think we might start flipping back to, I don't know, we might swing the pendulum to the complete other side where now we're restricting them. Still, it's still safer. Obviously, the number one goal, at least for normal people, is the safety of the athletes. But the people that make the money, if we're being honest, don't really care about that side of things unless you're a star.
No.
They just want the money. Uh, you just look at what these guys can do, because their strides are so long, their arms are so long. Legitimately being able to bounce the basketball once, maybe twice from half court, and getting to the rim, and their vision's so much higher compared to years past. They're so much smarter than years past. I You're going to see the whole fundamental. There's no more fundamentals in sports. At the end of the day, there's really, I
I
don't feel
like
like
that. No.
the fundamentals aren't really there, and the fundamentals don't sell. Nobody wants to see the it's the perfect screen dribble, the perfect. No, they want to see people doing these
Right.
freaky things. Uh, uh, the
Well,
family
well,
friendly freaky things on the TV.
Well,
um,
with Bob, you're making a joke about it, but think about it. Greg Maddox wouldn't get recruited today
yeah,
because he can't, because Greg Maddox, a pitcher that you guys should definitely look up and look at his stats and all the stuff he was able to do. He couldn't throw a ball faster than 95 miles an hour. So there is no way he'd get looked at today. Tony Gwynn wouldn't get looked at today because he didn't hit the ball 978 feet every time you hit it. So you're hitting on the point there. And oh, by the way, that half court thing you're talking about, that was actually a scouting drill that you would stand flush at the half court line and see if you could get to see in the fewest number of dribbles could you get to the rim. And so like that was actually a drill. And the way you're saying it now, and I apologize for stealing your train of thought. Are we getting to the point where we get into the physical limitations, right? Like how fast can a human run the 100-meter dash before their body explodes? There was a thought that if you ran the mile in under 4 minutes or under 3 minutes, that the human heart would explode, right? Or that if a plane flew past faster than the speed of sound, that the person inside body bones would turn to gel. But obviously that's not the case. Obviously that didn't happen. But are we really getting to the point now where one day we might see somebody able to throw the ball 150 miles an hour or 200 miles an hour, or somebody able to run the 100-meter dash in 3 seconds? Is there a physical limitation in this universe that we know that would just say, okay, no, you can't do that because your whole, if you try to throw a ball 100 something miles an hour, your socket would explode. Whatever. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. And again, I didn't mean to, derail your thought because it was such a great point. But, I think you're really onto something.
Yeah, but also not with just the physical limitations. I think we can look at the things that we can control as humans. You look at the NFL right now and all the kickers who can bomb
Mm-hmm.
all these field goals because of they're now not as limited with what they can do with the ball.
True.
They didn't have all this practice time. They couldn't use that particular ball, but now they're given the opportunity to actually use the one thing that they're paid for, which is it's crazy that they weren't able to do more, but the one thing that they're paid to do, the one thing that they're paid to do, kick the ball, and they're so limited. It's just like, here, you have to use this specific ball that nobody else has touched and whatever. So do with the
And
with,
you know what? I'm so sorry.
go
And
ahead.
for those who don't know, please hang on. For those who don't know, so you have the regular NFL ball that has to be air pressured between a certain range, and it's also a certain shape. If you look at the kicker's ball, the balls that have K on them, they're a little closer to the Australian rules football. They're a little bit more full size in terms of they're not quite round, but they're not that far away from being round in terms of they're still that oblong shape. But if you know, it's a little bit fatter in the middle, and they can be set to another pressure that's more responsive to the kick. So that's kind of what Bob is getting at there.
Yeah, I mean, it's only a matter of time before there is no field goal. You have to get to the 20, 30-yard line. It's going to be, okay, we're at therefore the other 40 or our own 40.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be, let's take a shot. We'll see. Let's see if we can make
so
that.
Let's see 40. Let's see. So you're on 40, 10 yards back
So
from
it's
that. I mean, that's so that means
75?
that's 50. That's not that is darn near an 80-yard field goal.
75,
Because you're
80, something like
talking
that.
50. Let's see, 50 plus 10 is 60, and 10 behind that. Yeah, you're talking about 75, between 75 and 80 yards, right
Oh
there.
yeah,
Because
that's right. I wasn't thinking about where the ball gets snapped to. So on paper it's going to be a 75-yard field goal, but really it's an 80-yard kick. So
exactly. So that's a great point, man. Great point.
yeah. Well, I don't know, Kai. I apologize if we didn't really answer your question. Again, we said in the first episode, me and Maestro, you never know what you're going to get. We like to talk. But I do want to transition to our next question, which is also a two-parter by a second person adding their input. So, but we'll start with the first part. And B. Ron, shout out B. Ron. Yee.
Be wrong.
He
Put up those scores.
He wanted our thoughts on the transition from QBs being a more traditional pocket passers to like the Mannings and the Bradys to the more mobile quarterbacks like the Mahomes and the Jacksons. But I want to add on Monty Parsons. Shout out Monty Parsons too. He tied it back into basketball, which we were just talking about. How our thoughts on the transition of the traditional big, your Shaqs, and your David Robinsons and stuff, which I mean, still freak athletes as well. That the thoughts of that from there to your 3-point shooting bigs, your facilitating bigs, versus them being those dominant paint scorers. Personally, uh, games are going to change. I would like to see a balance, but hey, what's going to win you the game? What's going to get you the championship? It doesn't matter if it's your Tom Brady Manning or your Mahomes Jackson. At the end of the day, what truly is going to matter is how good is your offensive line and how good are you at
Amen.
studying the game. I recommend anybody, Tom Brady, I don't want to say it was a tangent. It was a tangent. He was frustrated. He recently gave a little interview talking about how he feels like the game is easier now that you don't have to study as much, which everybody knows. Brady wasn't a freak athlete. Brady wasn't coming out of college running a 4.5 and bombing the ball downfield 80, 90 yards. But what he was a student of the game. And unfortunately, it affected his personal life, which is, we saw that at the end of his career, how that really affected him. But he was sitting in front of that TV. He was sitting in front of that playbook. He was going to know what you were going to do on the defense before you knew what you were going to do on the defense. I think there's a good balance. There should be a good balance of these things. I do wish there are some players back in when I was growing up that I would love to see them come out now versus 15 years ago. Your Pat Whites. I loved what Pat
Right.
White and Steve Slayton were doing at West Virginia. That
Great
option,
call.
that the Rich Rod offense. Which obviously he's back. He's back at West Virginia, but I would love to see what Pat White could do. Obviously,
Allen Iverson. Allen
Allen
Iverson
Iverson, yeah, yeah,
as a quarterback.
yeah,
YouTube that. Ooh,
yeah.
goodness.
Honestly, he may have been in high school. He may have been a better quarterback than he was a basketball. Not just quarterback. He may have been a better football player overall
He was.
than he
He was.
was a basketball
That
player.
was the thought. That was the thought. That was
Um,
the thought that he was going to follow Mike Vick.
because
That
I
was exactly the
think
thought.
it was either 7 or 9. I think it was 7 because 9 sounds outrageous, but it might have been 9 interceptions in one game. That
Hmm.
he on defense had 7 or 9 interceptions in one game, and it's just
Hmm.
like, that's crazy. And you go back. Oh, sorry to jump back to our last topic real quick, just because you had brought up Pete Maravich, and I think there was an ESPN 30 for 30 on him. There
Okay.
was something like
Okay.
that. Anyways, to jump back, the reason I brought that up is because I believe there was also an ESPN 30 for 30 on Iverson, or there was a documentary on Iverson as well,
Hmm.
because obviously we all know how he almost lost his sports career period before it ever really got started past high school because of some things that happened at the bowling alley. Um,
Yeah.
he was just such a freak athlete. There was a game where they said, just don't kick it to him. Kind of like, I think, the Giants
Hmm.
and the Eagles a few years ago when Deshaun Jackson was back
Johnson
there.
Eagles.
Don't punt the
Deshaun,
ball to Deshaun
exactly.
Jackson. What did they do? Punted the ball to Deshaun Jackson, and he returned it for a touchdown. The same thing
Not
happened
and
with,
actually
yeah,
and
go
actually
ahead.
and actually, Bob, I know the backstory of that play too because I've spoken with the punter since then because I was actually at that game. So I actually know the backstory of that thing that I'm gonna save it for later for you.
But just, Iverson, they said don't kick it to him, but Iverson was on the sideline, told coach, if they kick it to me, I'm taking it back. And he did just that. He was a freak athlete, and his size was never going to hold him back.
No,
Um,
no.
and I would love to see players like that playing in today's rules, just to see what would happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you, and you know what, like you said, laying into that traditional versus mobile, it's really going back to being the mobile quarterback. If you look at the early history of football and how the early, even the early history, not and I don't mean just the black professional football league that preceded the NFL, but the NFL itself, since we have so much old film on that, not video, but old film on that. Those early quarterbacks were athletes too, and they would actually run and run, and they were just as active as running backs. I think it was 1950, and again, please Please, Maestro, check me on this. I think it was 1950 that we had like a 2,000 yard passer, and it was like the world's coming to an end because the person
Yeah,
next to them, I think the person that was number two had like 830 something yards passing,
they hated
and they
passing. They hated
yeah
passing quarterbacks back then.
hated passing. So you had this thing where quarterbacks were mobile because they were an athlete on the field, and then we moved into the passing generation, and I'm gonna give credit to an old Jet, old Alabama guy, played for Bear Bryant, but also a Jet, Joe Namath. Joe Namath was the first to pass for 4,000 yards, and he did it in a 14 game season in a non-passing league. When in order to get a pass interference call, you had to actually take off the guy's helmet, bite him in his back, then you have to like break a leg, then you take him and you fling him up into the stands and go set him on fire, then you might get the flag. You might get the flag. The ref will say, it looks like normal contact to me. So think about what pass interference looked like back in the 70s or late 60s and early 70s on the days when you had Bradshaw and Roger Staubach and those guys throwing where playing defense was like mugging somebody.
Yeah.
You can get away with that today. You can get away with that today. So today's game of the pocket passer is more set according to the rules. However, someone who knows football decided, wait a minute, but if my quarterback is an athlete, because remember, the rule was supposed to be the quarterback was supposed to be your best athlete on the field, just like the shortstop in baseball, just like the point guard in basketball. If they're my best athlete, why don't I take advantage of the fact that they're not only the smartest player in the field, but they also can run, they can look for the holes, they can make those decisions. So that natural move to that particular position in that particular way, I think finding its balance, as you pointed out, Bob, finding that balance of that hybrid. I throw just as much as I run, a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, oh my goodness, a Bo Nix, or
Lamar Jackson.
a Lamar Jackson, who has turned himself into I apologize, you bring him up earlier, who has turned himself into, now his arm is more dangerous than his legs, and that says a lot for a guy that I remember him in college. I remember the year he won the Heisman. I mean, how
Says a
many
lot
guys?
about a running back playing quarterback, right?
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
yeah, 100%. I mean, and oh, by the way, look up Lamar Jackson's last year. I believe he played at Louisville. I
Yep.
believe he played at Louisville in
Yep.
college. Please check me
He
on
did.
this.
He did.
And and that team probably would have won 3 or 4 games without him. And you look at a guy who won the Heisman when his last game, his team was mauled. However, he was so outstanding, even on that team. All you heard writers say, or all you read writers write and heard broadcasters say was, if this guy was on, and they would list other teams that tried to recruit him, if he was on Notre Dame, if he was on Florida at the time, or whoever, that how dangerous that team would have been. And that's just how good he was and how much of a weapon he was. And he gets to the NFL, and everybody says, well, he's only going to run. And no, he does more than run. He's not RG3. He's turned his arm into a weapon, and as we saw the last couple of seasons, there's probably not anybody in the backfield more dangerous than him. The close one maybe might be a Josh Allen. I'm gonna just be nice about that. Um, so you're right with that traditional style quarterback to now the mobile quarterback. I think is just a natural evolution as a talent in the game, and the coaching in the game is trying to evolve around, I have 11 athletes on the floor or so on the field, let me use all of them.
Yeah, and I think people that don't, I feel like it's kind of a basic knowledge, but I don't know if it necessarily is. People don't realize the majority of, I don't want to say the majority, but a good portion of stars at non-quarterback positions were quarterbacks in high school. Like
Yes.
you said, the best athlete played quarterback, and a lot of the time the transition from, there's only so many schools in college that you're gonna get looked at one for being a quarterback. So you'll see all these guys, cornerbacks, safeties, receiver, and you look at Ryan Tannehill. I mean, Ryan Tannehill made the transition a couple times in college. He was running back,
Yeah.
or not running, sorry, wide receiver, quarterback, wide receiver,
I
quarterback.
received.
Injuries got
Yeah.
him at Texas A&M. Injuries got him back into the quarterback position, and which was probably the best thing for his career. I still
Agreed.
think I believe he was a serviceable, he was a manageable quarterback in the NFL. I will say that. I like Tannehill myself. Um,
And and he the quarterback who won the first Super Bowl with the Ravens that everyone says
Um,
just basically was a placeholder, and I apologize, I'm blanking on his
Trent
name.
Dilfer,
Yeah, well, yeah, Trent Dilfer. Well,
I
I
think.
thought Trent was with Tampa, but you're right, you're right. So yeah,
I think Brad Johnson won it with Tampa.
yeah, it's right. Brad Johnson won with Tampa. You're right. I apologize. Thank you so much for that, Bob. So Brad Johnson and Trent Dilfer are kind of like Tom Brady, quasi pre Tom Brady a little bit, even though they overlapped. Guys who physically were not going to wow you, but were really smart, played multiple positions, IQ off the chart for the game as the game was transitioning at the height of what we now call the traditional pocket quarterback. They could read the play. They studied film. They would look at they will look at pre-iPad. They look at the cutout of all of the film footage of camera film footage on the sidelines in between plays, see settings, studied the team, knew what the personnel was, knew what to do. Those two guys just took it to a whole nother level. And the story about them is their teams won their Super Bowls on the backs of the defense. And these guys don't get credit for the fact that not only did they manage the game, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but they also played the game at such a high IQ level. They just weren't spectacular when everybody's too busy looking at Ray Lewis or Warren Sapp or Keyshawn Johnson
Mhm.
or Shannon Sharp or whatever.
Yeah, do not talk bad. I just again another thing that I saw recently. A bunch of random stuff pops up for me on YouTube. Do not talk bad about Warren Sapp's quarterback because he
Mm-mm.
will go in on you. Cam Newton tried it on him and he was not having
Yeah.
it.
You know
So
what? And I hate to say it, Cam should know better, even though I know he doesn't. He should know better of all the cats who took the routes that he did to become what he became and whatever he is now, grandmama or whatever, new grandma part two. Um, he should know better because there was no worse student. And everybody would tell you that there was no worse student on any team other than him. Probably maybe Jamarcus Russell or maybe or or maybe Johnny Manziel. You know, just horrible. You know, in college they could be Johnny Football, no pun intended. They can run all over the place because they were the better athlete, like Tim Tebow. But once you got to the pros, where I'm going to say it, and I don't mean this in a sexist way. Please don't take it that way. Once you got around grown men and that was their job, you got lit up. And they learned your habits really quick, including how many times you would tap the ball before you would throw it and things like that. Dude, different world. So he, of all people, should know better.
well, I think that kind of ties into our last topic, but I don't want to skip out on Monty's
No, no,
part
no, no, no.
of his question, and it was the our thoughts on the transition of the traditional big to these facilitating bigs. I don't want to take I'm going to, but I'm going to take the lead on this topic again, like I did the quarterback question, because I am a traditional center in basketball. Like that, I believe that Shaq is the greatest center to ever play basketball. And I don't believe that we ever saw his true potential because he was a student of the game, but he wasn't a student of the game. He was going to use his size and athleticism to beat you every time. And I don't believe that and he'll tell you. I mean, he was a big jokester, which is fine, but I I just think he could have done. I think he could have averaged probably 45 points and 20 rebounds a game if he really wanted to. But did he want to? Didn't seem like it. I love the transition. All that to say, again, being a purist when it comes to what I think a center should be, I love the the jokers. I love the fact that we have this guy who you're not one dimensional like a Shaq was, because that's what he was. He was going to get you those points in the paint. He wasn't. You didn't have to worry about him twirling around at the 3 point line, just tossing it up there with the ugliest shot in the world, and it's going to go in like Joker does.
Right.
You didn't have to worry about Shaq seeing the guard wide open in the corner for a three and passing it off to him. I love that the vision and the IQ of these players has grown. I do think that we have too many players shooting threes. Like a Sixers fan here, Embiid would be uh, when he's healthy and on the court, he is an elite center. However, when he decides he wants to shoot threes versus using his athleticism and size, because we don't have huge players like Shaq, and we don't have Hakeem's down there. We don't have David Robinson's down there. We don't have Tim Duncan's to worry about. Uh,
No,
his size is such an advantage for him. He doesn't use it. And it's a shame, but I mean, that is what it is. I don't necessarily want to see him be a pure traditional center and what I see that as, but I also don't want to see him standing at the 3 point line taking 5 to 10 threes a game when I know he can get down low and probably average 30 35 points a game. And he's wasting a lot. I get love the Sixers, love Embiid. We are wasting some of our young guys. Your Maxi, Edgecombe. Shout out Sixers for seeing something that I didn't. I didn't like the draft pick. I didn't have faith in the draft pick. Um, and your Obreys, like there's so much talent on this team right now.
hmm
Our guy Embiid's never there. Paul George is never there. It- we're wasting talent because we don't have a center who is dominating. Because what, you get Embiid for a game or two, and then he's out
right,
for a game or two because they got to rest him for
right.
his knees. Then you get to the playoffs and he misses the entire series that he needs to be there for. That if he's not there, we're going to lose. So I'm sorry. I apologize, everybody. I'm going on a tangent right now. I'm going to toss this over to Maestro because I can go on about my frustrations with the Sixers all day.
It's all good, boo. It's all good, boo. And again, Monty, and amazing question because I love my bigs, right? And I made no secret, and I've even had interaction with this guy, but Vlade Divac is a guy that I often said that if I ever saw him on the street, I'd beat him to death with a trash can. When I told him that, he asked me why, and I told him the fact that I would love to have seen him play inside more, and he made a comment about how he learned the game with Magic and how Magic wanted him to expand his game. And the problem was he got so good at being the outside big that it gave us our Dirk Nowitzki's, all these 7-2 guys who can shoot the three. And oh, by the way, moving to that, right? That whole idea of that traditional center to, as B-Ron would always yell at me about, non-position basketball or whatever. And even though I sort of accept that in a kind of crazy way, here's the thing, and I'll say this, and I'm also going to make a tie-in with Ken Griffey Jr. To me, Shaq is a lot like Ken Griffey Jr. The difference was Ken Griffey Jr. was able to manage his health a lot longer because of how baseball goes. Because Ken Griffey Jr. also did not work out. Ken Griffey Jr. also did not do the things that a top tier player would do because he was just so good. And Shaq had that same problem, right? Shaq was so good. He was so dominant. He was so big. And big wasn't just height, by the way. Shaq was trucking at 350, 360 and moving like he was a power forward.
Yeah,
So that's different than that's different than what you see now with guys who are like 7'7", 7'9", that are basically,
120
pencils. Like,
pounds.
yeah, 100, exactly, man. Turn sideways, stick out their tongue. You think they're a zipper. So, it's just this reality of what type of player Shaq was. And unlike you, I think my favorite center that I always loved watching, just because he was so different, and maybe because he was a unicorn, that's why I liked him so much, was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and the fact that how not only his passing but his ability to be that flexible player inside, even in times when he would take the 18-20 foot skyhook and it would go in just like a jump shot. Just that's that sort of game that he plays. So it might be unfair to call him a center like that in the traditional sense, because I guess he really wasn't. But you're talking about a guy who was so dominant in high school and college that they changed the rule. They made the dunk illegal because of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So, they changed the rules for years and realized, well, he's still outplaying everybody, so let's going to put the rule back, right? But the idea for now the traditional center moving to being the outside player. Monty, I don't believe that day is gone. I believe in my heart, and maybe it's just me wanting to believe this, Monty, but I believe that we're at a spot now where we're starting to see coaches trying to hang on to their job, general managers trying to make sure they have a pretty strong team, or finding ways to get a post player to score in a traditional way because they're realizing how many points they're leaving on the floor. Think about how much more fast paced the game is now than it was back in the day with the traditional bigs, but the scoring averages keep going down. Why is that? Because players are so inefficient. There was a time if you would have chucked up 5 shots and missed 4, you were on the bench. You wouldn't have got to 5 shots to miss. You'd have been on the bench before that, right? Now we don't see that anymore, right? And then you get spoiled when you think about a player like, Stephen Curry, who gets out of his car in the parking lot, throws up a three, and it goes in nothing but net. For all the other players who will, like, yeah, he used to play here in Atlanta. I almost don't want to say his name, but Josh would just take shots, and you'd go and hear the announcers go, "And why?" Because if he got the ball, he was gonna chuck it up, not shoot, chuck it up. So I think the idea now of taking those shots, I think, and I think there's another element to it, Bob. I think there's a laziness now with players not wanting to do the work inside the way they normally do, and I think that's infected the approach to the game now, where you get a player like Akeem the Dream Olajuwon, and you look at his footwork and how he played cats inside, and how in his way you would see cats like Shaq or Alonzo Mourning. Those bigs go back and study their games against him and notice his footwork and try to learn the things he did. And you notice when they started emulating Akeem, they all got better. So, I think it takes a lot of work to play, even though it's not glamorous on the outside. It takes a lot of effective work to be a traditional big. And I think it's just easier just to take the shot because you're so much taller than everybody else. Hopefully we're going to get back to those guys doing that work, because to me, that's another art form in the game, Monty, that I believe is being left behind. But I do feel that we're getting a generation of players who are going back into retro, which is my youth and ball, the 1930s, 1940s, where you're seeing traditional bigs do what they do.
Yeah, but I do want to go back just because it was such a big thing here a few days ago. You talked about players being so efficient or so inefficient nowadays.
Hmm.
The headline I saw was Cade Cunningham scores 46 points, and then you go and you take a deep dive and it goes he scored 46 points on 45 shots. What?
Right, right.
That guy would have 20, 30 years ago probably would have not seen the rest of the game after the first 10 shots because the coach just
No
wasn't going
way.
to risk it. Now, Cade Cunningham is the heart and soul of that Pistons team right now, and you're not going
Mm,
to ever take him out for any reason at all.
right.
And I believe they won the game as well. So without him, they wouldn't be. I don't remember, what are they, 7-2, 7-3. I don't remember. I'm sure they've played some games since then, but it
Please
just
fact check us. Please fact check us
yeah,
on this, guys.
I know it was a few days ago, so yeah, it's so inefficient, but we still celebrated the fact that he scored 46 points on 45 shots, and
Right.
I it yeah that I I don't know. Going going to the next topic, the final topic, everybody. So I know one thing people will learn is we do not know when to shut up, and we do not stop talking unless we force ourselves to. So we'll go. I'm going to force us to go to our final topic. Jay
Yes.
Midoriya, thank you for your final topic. Kind of tied into
Jay.
what I felt like when we started talking about Cam Newton and how you were saying how he should know better than to say some of the stuff he says. But that is social media nowadays. So Jay
Yes.
Midoriya wanted us to talk about how social media has influenced the sports industry and perspective of athletes, and how those have changed due to the fact that everybody has an opinions. I'm sorry, everybody has opinions, and those
Hmm. Hmm.
opinions have influenced sports as a whole. What are your thoughts on the effects of social media in athletes today.
It's going to come across really wrong. And some of you who are watching this, I really appreciate you because you kind of have an idea of what Maestro's about, which I truly appreciate. And some are going to learn this. So it's going to come across being really mean, but it shows the lack of literacy, awareness of sports, awareness of the process, and it shows the true lack of a mental acuity for so many people because everything has become Pop Tarts, right? You put the Pop Tart in the toaster or not, and you can eat it right away. You don't take the time and prepare the meal anymore. And so social media, what it's done is it's allowed part of what I talked about earlier, that earlier reaction of actualization of a moment to the monument the monumentation of an idea. All of a sudden it becomes holy writ, or just a shortened time between performance and acceptance, right? Or performance and awareness. Because now, you know, people are posting their stuff right away. They're posting their stuff as they're doing it. And it's also shortened the contact time in between athletes from the younger generation to the older generation. Why? Because I can slide into their DMs, or I can at them at a place, and I can get to one of Kevin Garnett's 47 whatever you call it, his burner IDs online, because he's always going to defend himself, as some girl from Idaho, because he just can't stand people talking bad about him. So there's this strong connection, Bob, of that is just shorten the time, shorten the awareness. Now all of a sudden, I hired a coach Monday. They haven't played their first game yet, and all of a sudden I want to fire him because there was a bad practice.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because I want
Yeah.
the Pop-Tart happening, right? Now, here's the good thing, though. For those who are using it in the right way, it is speeding along the adaptation to the game. Players are going into the game with a more awareness of what they need to know to be there, because they can contact those professional athletes faster. They don't have to write a letter like we used to do it back in the day, or a postcard, and put your phone number on and hope that they would call you, or hope
Or
when they came through town you can go.
or a stone tablet, and you have
Right. Yes. Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah. You got me. When I got my first master's. Yes, it was on stone tablets. Yes, it was. It was right. As a matter of fact, I told Moses, I said, Moses, don't drop it when you come down, and he did. Next thing you had to come back up there again. But anyway, so so that idea that I'm now closer to that knowledge, like we talked about with those earlier players, right? Those players that are born into these families that have pro athletes, you learn these little secrets. Well, guess what? Now that kid in Teton, Colorado, can now connect with a player in New York or
Yep.
a player in LA, and in a way they could not do before. So I can send them clips of my game. I can send her clips of my workout. I can do whatever I want to do with any pro athlete now instantly, without having to try to get a phone number, without trying to have to get an address. I can just find their handle online, and unless it's Kevin Garnett that has 178 burner IDs, and if you don't know which one they are, which you wouldn't look at them anyway unless they're him. Sorry, meaning too soon. Okay, my bad. You know, I can now learn faster than I would in Teton, Colorado, than I would, than I would have before, when I was disconnected from the rest of the world.
Yep.
So there's a lot of great stuff about it, because I think it sort of raises our awareness of what's happening now. But I think for some people, they don't have the balance of what's happening now to versus what happened before, and where does it now come from? Especially when I hear things like this. When I hear athletes, for instance, running back that's really having a really great season here for the New England Patriots. I can't believe I said the name as a Jets fan. And and he talked about
Say his
studying.
name, Maestro. Say his name. Travion Henderson, Ohio
Yeah, you're the
State,
worst.
the
You're the
Ohio State
worst.
University. Well,
You're the
boo, Ohio
worst.
State.
Yeah. So he talked about, when we was talking to some of his teammates, he talked about studying. He talked about studying Marshall Falk. And his team was like, who? And Marshall Faulk is a running back that was one of the first cats that were in the line of guys who would catch the ball from the backfield. I'm sorry, from the running back position, would run out on routes, would actually catch like a wide receiver and stuff like that. Was part of the greatest show on turf. If you look up that, and also which led way to a player like LaDainian Tomlinson, who did the same, where he would line up in the backfield or he would go as a wide out. He would play in all the various different positions. And the fact that you have a player to talk about them and to have everyone else say, "Who are you talking about?" It shows you as aware as some of them think they are in what's happening with the game right now. They're unaware of the history of where the game comes from and the great players that they could also learn from that are still with us that we could do a
Yep.
lot to help them.
Yeah.
And I think the balance is needed for that particular part of the role that social media can play. That's why I love seeing those social media sites that say this day in history or
Yep.
a
Yep.
throwback to this particular player. If one kid on a high school team all of a sudden realizes Hank Aaron did more than hit home runs, what a great player Hank Aaron was, or learn that Tony Gwynn was not only had a chance to play professional basketball other than baseball, and that he struck out less in the major leagues than he had assists his time in college. Just think about that for 1 second. He struck out one season 14 times, the entire season. You see guys that's a week for a lot of guys here today. And the concentrate and what they put into the game. Social media can now bring those guys back to us, right? We can appreciate their game. And I would like to see some people learn. If one kid learns from that, it raises the level of the game now, and I think it makes it more interesting.
Yeah. Social media has been a great thing and a terrible thing in the world. Great because, like you said, everything is at your fingertips now. But one of the issues with it is nobody fact checks. There's all
No.
kinds of things that go on out there, and especially now with AI. Oh my
Yeah.
God, AI has been so terrible and so great at the same time. Just completely off topic. If anybody can, please, if you know who Bob Ross is, might be dating myself a little bit. However, if you know who Bob Ross is, please look up Bob Ross cat videos. It's all AI, but it is hilarious. But anyways, yeah, it's been a blessing and a curse. Social media. You have, like you said, those guys. I can go right now and find highlights for Adrian Peterson to show somebody, Barry Sanders, going
hmm
back to Walter
hmm
Payton, all
hmm
these. You go back,
Gail
you're going to see all these
Sayers.
things. Yeah, Gail. Yep. But I can also now tell you that I'm going to. You can't say this on YouTube, and I'm sure it'll whatever. I'm gonna. I don't want us to not. We're not monetized, but I don't want to demonetize us before we ever get monetized. I'm gonna come find you and hurt you. Within
Yeah.
5 seconds of somebody doing something bad, you're getting those death threats. You're getting those things,
Yeah. Yes.
and like you
Yes.
said back in the day, somebody might learn that somebody said something bad about them because a reporter came up to them and said, "Hey, did you hear that so and so said this?" Like days later. Now it's, "Oh, I have 150 people that sent me a message on TikTok or Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever, MySpace, saying all these negative things." Again, so it's bad in that sense, and I know after my generation is kind of when mental when mental health started to become serious. But like with
Yeah.
my generation and your generation, it was never really taken seriously, and
No.
people don't realize the effects that social media has on young
Oh
people,
yeah. It's brutal. It's
even
brutal.
adults. It has such
Brutal.
unrealistic expectations, but it makes it so easy for someone to tell somebody, "Go do this, you're worthless." And
hmm
it's a shame, but again, but that's how technology is, and that's how advancements are. It's so good for the majority of the time, but it's those really bad things that give it a bad name. Um, you just and it again, going back to Cam Newton, like, and all the big talking all the big talking heads, they say stuff that they don't even mean, because the only thing they care about is that the view count, the like count, how many people are there engaging, whether it's good or bad engagement. It's just like
For that.
what's the saying? I forgot it because I wanted to say any something is good. Any publicity is good
Yeah.
publicity,
Right.
and
Right. Right.
that's people. Stephen A. doesn't believe half the stuff he says. Skip
No.
Bayless doesn't
No, he
believe
doesn't.
half the stuff he says.
They're
Um,
they're actually characters. They're actually
yeah,
TV characters.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and it's just one of those things where people are gonna hate me for this, but believe it or not, Tupac was a character. Let's be real. Go back and look at what he was before he was Gangster
Mm.
Tupac. He's a ballerina. He, I mean, what worked? Again, he brought a lot of good eyes to a lot of the troubles that black males had back then. So I'm not trying to diminish anything, but
Oh no, not at
characters
all.
can bring eyes to things, good or bad, and that's where I was trying to go with that. Yeah, it just, you say these outrageous things. You want to be the first person to say these things. With just like the news,
Yeah.
you want to be the first person, and the problem is the first person is the one that gets the limelight, and then we're running with these stories that things aren't true, and all of a sudden now you're backtracking, but everybody believes what was not true.
Well, yeah. What
And
was said first?
yeah,
Yeah.
what was said first, what got the headlines first, and those are the things with social media. Is it has given everybody a voice, and love freedom of speech, but not everybody needs. I don't need everybody to have a voice. I'm just saying. I don't need
But
everyone to have a voice, but
you know what? It's so funny you put it that way because you think about your players. I'm sorry. You think about the people like the Skip Baylesses and oh Lord, you said his name. I just forgot it. Oh my goodness gracious.
Stephen A.
Um, Stephen A. Or even the guy who does all of the trade stuff
Adam
in
Scheffler.
baseball and
Oh,
Adam Schefter. Thank you, man.
no, is that who you're
See,
talking about,
so
or are you talking about
yeah. Oh
Buster Olney
yeah.
was baseball?
Yeah. No. Adam Schefter. So these guys are have earned their space, right, to be compensated the way they're compensated, and we never talk about the money because that doesn't matter. When I say compensated, I mean given the time that they're given. I'm not talking about their contracts because I have no right to talk about that. I don't believe anybody has a right to anybody money, but by that I mean the amount of time that they're space that they're given within the media. They've earned the right to be where they are. Colin Cowherds, all those guys, they've earned that, right? Because they've been there every day. And and sometimes these guys, I'm sure, are talking anywhere from from 8 to 10 hours a day, not just on their own shows, but other shows and stuff like that, right? So it's hard to be right every time. It's hard to be right, and sometimes they might forget something, just like me. Like, and we're only doing this once a week, right? But so it's like it's hard to remember who's playing quarterback for who or who's doing what for who. Since sometimes that mistake is going to happen. And what the pros do? They own it. Say, what, we said so and so was on this team, and no, I'm sorry, we missed that. Or in the case where, unfortunately, sometimes where like one of them might do an entire analysis piece on a game, but have the wrong quarterback because that quarterback has been traded or no longer with that team or whatever, right? You know what? Okay, I made a mistake. The people who follow you, the people who like you, they're okay with that. Why? Because if you say, yeah, you know what, I messed that up.
Mm-hmm.
Because why? I think most people understand that these guys are talking half or more than half of their waking hours.
Yep.
So it's hard to be 100% all the time. It really, really is. And so there's reality to it. However, unfortunately, social media from Blue Sky to X to whatever, it's its own ecosystem, and that's if you just keep the actual people, not the bots that are being programmed via algorithms to just bring out this or that or whatever, because that makes it a whole nother conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So the change in the environmental and social dynamic, and oh, by the way, Jay Midoriya, hopefully didn't get away from your question too much, because I think that's now why we see, for instance, a guy, it's usually a guy, will go to a game and they've been xing back and forth with an athlete or a bot or whatever, and they feel like I'm gonna go into this game and I'm gonna look at Kirk Cousin, I'm gonna say this to his face, blah blah blah, whatever, or they run into the wrong athlete and get smashed, right? Why? Because I had those keyboard thumb muscles or finger muscles, keyboard muscles that didn't translate to these cats who came from the hood who are protecting their turf when you run out on the field, right? And I think that's another change because the fact that there's a proximity of awareness and acceptance that I think some people have because of social media. They think they're really closer to Britney Spears and Taylor Swift and all these other people than they really are because, oh, guess what? I follow them on their social
Yep.
media. Or guess what? They liked one of my tweets or whatever. So, I think that's another change too that led into all that. And again, Jay, so sorry for getting off on your topic, but it's such a great question. It's such a great question, Jay, that it opened us up to so many different things of how it's changed, not just the sports landscape of the kid from nowhere that can now be recruited somewhere to a mistake gets amplified more than it would have been before and
Yep.
then relived over and over and over again more than it might have before.
Yeah, you'll never live down. Now, I'm not saying this because you're a Jets fan. I'm so sorry that it was the first one that
It's
popped
okay.
into my head.
It's okay. The butt fumble. Go
The
ahead.
butt
Let's get
fumble.
out the way.
We
Say
will
it. I knew,
never live. The butt
I
fumble
knew,
is.
I knew exactly what you're gonna say. I was
But
already. Listen. I carried around on my back like a bunch of other stuff that we did sideways. And oh, by the way, the worst part about that game for me was it was Thanksgiving night, right? And I had on, I actually had tickets to the game, but my family wanted to do a Thanksgiving dinner, and we hadn't done it in a while because I had not been in the country in a while. So I went to the family game, and one of my younger cousins, God bless her heart, she found a way to get the NFL service on her phone. So I'm at the dinner table watching the game and watching that just mess of stuff. And at that moment, I basically gave her a phone back and said, "Thank you, baby. I'm good right now." So that's like when I was like, "Oh God!" But so it's like, and I hear it all the time, but nobody talks about the fact that the center got his butt racked up like a sea anemone. Basically, you look like a sea anemone trying to box Mike Tyson, right? He
Was
gets
it?
racked up, and that's what got.
Was it rest in peace? Was it Nick Mangold, one of the best centers the Jets have ever, if not the
Oh,
best center the Jets have
I
ever
think it
had?
was. I
I
think
think
it
because that
was.
I
I
think
know.
I think that
I
was
think
the
it was.
Shaw Ferguson, Nick Mangold. They had some solid players up front there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't want to. That was just the first one. Nobody
Yeah.
will ever live down the butt fumble, and as much good. Go moving it. There you go.
There we go. Come on,
um,
man.
but as much good as Deshaun Jackson did, I'm never gonna
Right.
forget the. I think it was the dang it, the All American when he was in high school, him
Oh yeah.
dropping the touchdown, flipping into the end zone, not getting the
Mm-hmm.
touchdown because the ball didn't cross the line. Him
About to cross the
dropping
line.
him dropping the ball in the NFL, but like he's done all these good things. He had that punt return against the Giants, but one of the first thing that pops into your head is that negative dropping the
Right.
ball before he gets across the end zone, and it's happened multiple times where you just start to go, when is he going to learn? Um,
Yeah, and we're gonna say that all the time. And oh, by the way, hold on to your thought real quick. So here's the story about Matt Dodge, who I believe Matt Dodge was the punter for the Giants. I believe that was his name, Matt Dodge. I don't think it was Dodge Matt. I think it was Matt Dodge. He was purposely told to kick the ball out of bounds.
yes,
And
yes.
this is exactly what he said. He actually, I heard some on this. He was trying to kick the ball out of bounds and just got it flush. And it's like you think about how many thousands of hours those guys practice,
Yeah.
right? For this one moment. And it's almost like a guy shooting free throws. Okay, we want you to miss one. Now, unless it's Shaq, you don't worry about it. But anybody else who actually shoots real free throws, sorry, Shaq, my bad. For anyone else, right? I want you to miss this free throw because we need to miss it and get the rebound. Just think about how many thousand, and even though you might be a little bit more in control, just think about all the muscle memory you're trying to negate right now to not perform at the top level. How hard that has to be. And I felt so bad for him because Coach Coughlin lit into him like nobody's business. And having had interaction with Coach Coughlin, I know what a cool guy he is. I know how funny he is. But to see him, and I guess the Giants were having a bad season anyway. To see the weight of the world on him
When
like that,
don't
just kind
they?
of let
When
off. And
don't? Sorry. Go keep
yeah,
going.
no, you're fine. Just like to see him light into the mat that way, Mr. Dodge that way was just, I felt so bad for him because I'm thinking to myself, he worked so hard to be this top level punter, to be asked to do something imperfect. His body was probably screaming and made all the corrections it needed to make sure that he actually kicked it right.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. He did say he wanted to kick it out of bounds, and like the worst person that you could have punted it to,
Yes.
Deshaun Jackson. And you are correct. I was actually I wanted to look it up real quick because I didn't think it was Matt Dodge, but it was Matt Dodge. So
Hey, Big
hey,
Maestro, the brain is working.
hey. But yeah, I mean, again, social media, great and terrible at
Yeah,
the same time. But Maestro, I appreciate you as always. This was In the
same here,
Pocket,
brother.
where we talk
Same
about
here,
what you want
brother.
to talk about. Maestro, you got any final words for the people or anything you just want to get off your chest?
I just want to say thank you for everybody who is putting up with me and my man's there, Big Bob, and gave us those topics. Just for taking the time to do it and for taking the time to listen to the show. It means, I can't even tell you how much it means. Thank you. Just thank you. Appreciate
Yeah,
you so
yeah,
much beyond words. And please keep giving us more topics.
yeah, absolutely. Shoot us an email. In the Pocket Sports Podcast at gmail.com. Leave us a message in the YouTube or leave us a comment down below. Let us know what you want us to talk about. And again, we do appreciate all of you that listened last week. I know again we over an hour now we've been talking, and it's what we do. Again, another shout out, Kai Killens, B. Ron, Monty Parson, Jay Midoriya. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys giving us those topics for us to talk about. We really want to talk about what you want to hear. But I appreciate you guys as always. Have a great rest of your week.